All right, here we are. We're back again. It's Tuesday, the 18th of November. Oh my God. So the B-roll you guys are watching right now is a remote, well, not really remote, but it's 150 acres of rural property a friend of mine's parents had for many years near Dawson Creek. And he lives in Vancouver, and he's a real estate guy, and they're going to sell the property. And he asked me to go up there and check it out and hike it and see what I thought. And so I went up there today because things are slow in the woods here. And I told him I would before I even left. You know, that's one of my things. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I got to do it. So I drove there a couple hours. And I said, well, make sure he goes, his best friend lived at the end of the road, I think, or somebody he grew up with lived at the end of the road. They grew up there. He grew up there years ago. And I said to him, I go, well, make sure you tell the neighbors that I'm doing this because I don't need to be getting in a gunfight, right, or whatever. There's a lot of crime in Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, a lot of drug crime and nasty crime and theft. So I was a little leery because I said to him, he goes, oh, no, you'll be fine. My friends and the neighbors, they'll know you're going to be there. I'm like, okay, cool. Because I'm basically parking right at the locked gate on a rural road. And my truck does look like the villain's truck in a way, right? It's black Dodge 4x4 covered in dirt right now. Anyway, so here's a funny one. I'll start with the funny one, then I got some crazy emails to share too. So as you can see, I walked in on the fresh snow. I walked around all the outbuildings, looked at the windows with the GoPro on my head. I cut that part out. And then I'm like, all right, let's check out this property. So off I go down this trail. And then there's a pipeline running alongside the property, on the property. And I went out there, double checked my maps with the iPhone. And then I went to the very back of the property, like a bit of a hike. Like I had all my hiking gear on. And then I went to the right till I think I split the entire property in half midsection. And then I just went for it and I hiked straight through the jungle. The whole thing's treed with muskeg and spruce and bog, and some patches are not bad poplar, but it's mostly spruce and boggy. So as I got through the middle, I was like stumbling around. I don't know if we'll make it that far in the B-roll or not. It's a real thick timber with muskeg and peat moss and big snowdrifts. So it's basically a really gnarly hike. And I was pretty sweaty and wet from snow on my clothes and onwards. Anyway, so I stumbled through there, you'll see. And I made it out. When I got out, I noticed there was an SUV parked right on the road, right behind my truck. And then I looked down the ground, and sure enough, here's prints going in there after me on top of my boot prints. I'm like, oh boy, somebody's going to be real mad by the time they get out here if they're going in there trying to catch the bad guy. Because, I mean, obviously, if you were to go in there, I mean, obviously this person's going there and tracking me down. Concerned rural neighbor, right? Obviously not informed. I was in there. And I kind of had a lot because obviously you would imagine the person that's going to do this is going to be A-type, right? You see this jacked up black Dodge 4x4 at the gate, and you're probably thinking, I'm going to track this guy down. So obviously, if you're going to do that, you got some confidence. That tells me they're probably an A-type with confidence, and they're going to go track me down. When, in common sense world, you probably should have just parked right there or even blocked my vehicle and called the cops if you thought somebody was doing something bad. And I had to laugh because you'll see in the B-roll, I mean, right about now in the B-roll, it's all easy. It's all muskeg and swamp right there and bogs. So they built this boarded up walkway to get back into their interior property cabins. But later on in the video, you'll see the hell hike that I did. So by the time I got out and I saw it was going down, somebody went in there to track me down. I'm thinking, oh man, is this person ever going to be pissed off by the time they finish tracking me? Because I was in knee-deep drifts going through the moss and the stunted spruce. It was hell. So if you're already fired up thinking you're after the bad guy and you're going to catch him, and you start tracking him down the route that I took, oh my God. So I had a little bit of a snicker. I just jumped my truck and left. I had a little snicker about that one. But anyway, here I am. Here we are. And it is time to hear some more. Now, what do we got going on here? All right, now listen to this. This is titled, "It Was 9 to 11 Feet Tall." Hi, Steve. I hope you're doing well. I just want to thank you for the very entertaining personal touch you add to your videos and the offer to share others' experiences. Of course, I heard of Sasquatch, and Dad took me to see the Passion film as a kid. But I never really believed or even thought much about the subject until I had my encounter. It all happened back in the summer of 2002, but I remember it like it was yesterday. One day while I was picking up my pay in the war room at Fort Indian Town Gap, I overheard news that my National Guard unit was about to get orders to deploy as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. At the time, I was a rifleman with COC 111th Infantry 56th Stryker Brigade out of Kutztown, PA. I currently volunteered for state active duty as part of Operation Noble Eagle, guarding the Limerick Generating Station. I was carrying full combat load on that detail for almost a year when I asked to be relieved. At that time, I wanted to deploy with my unit, that band of brothers thing, plus the retirement points and the veterans benefits increase if you're deployed in combat. I guess you have to be a grunt to get it because my civilian friends thought I was out of my mind. A 42-year-old infantryman and wanting to be sent to an area of hostile fire. Ha ha ha. Now that I look back, I guess I was a little nut. It was then when a friend offered to take me on a weekend camping trip to a little pay campsite along the banks of West Branch of the Susquehanna, just west of Williamsport, PA. It was meant to be a relaxing trip before I deployed, and while there, we would drink a few beers to look for Indian arrowheads in the nearby fields, and he was also going to give me a flint knapping lesson. We soon got bored with the area, walking after only finding a few broken projectile points and some chipping. There was an excellent flowing feeder stream emptying into the river just downstream called Big Run, and I wanted to explore it. I've been hunting arrowheads for many years and have found that almost every stream and spring in PA has a small Native American hunting camp at the head where the water first pops up out of the ground. It was scorching that day, and my friend got tired after a mile or so and he wanted to turn back. I, however, was determined to find a camp and went on alone. I followed the stream for another mile or two, when eventually it got so thick with rhododendron it became nearly impossible to follow. And at that point I started to hear the sound of a highway way off in the distance and found a crushed soda can in the stream. From the can I came to the conclusion that the head of the stream was somewhere on the other side of the highway and farther away than I was prepared to travel. At the bottom of the mountain, I remembered seeing an old logging road that ran up the gorge to the path to the left of the stream. I decided that would be the easiest and quickest way back downriver. After fighting my way through the thick undergrowth, I finally found the old logging road that was about 200 yards to the left of the stream. And as soon as I located the trail, I found a nice flat spot that had a push pile for making the road, so I decided to scratch around in the pile to see if I could find any traces of flint chips in the soil. I have discovered whole arrowheads in these topsoil piles in the past at other locations. All I found in a pile that day was a few small northern ringneck snakes. It was getting even hotter, and I was almost out of water, so I decided to pack up my scratcher and head back down the mountain. Not 2 steps into my journey home, standing about 60 yards in front of me, was the most terrifying experience in my life. Honestly, I would like to think that I'm a reasonably brave man, but I was not prepared for this encounter at all. Being an experienced infantry soldier and an avid big game hunter, it takes a lot to rattle me. But what I saw standing in front of me shook me to my very core, and I instantly froze. A flood of thoughts went through my mind in a second. I wanted it to be a bear in the worst way, just like I've seen many times before, but it wasn't a bear. When I realized what it was, overwhelming fear hit me, and I felt like I was going to vomit. When it turned and started running toward the stream where I just came from, I couldn't believe the speed it achieved in such a short time. I could clearly see these two massive, muscular legs running because the deer had everything browsed off as high as they could reach. The legs alone had to be as tall as me. Holy shit, that is big, isn't it? I'm 5'6", so this thing was probably almost 6 feet just to the waist. Being a long-time bear hunter, I think this creature had to weigh anywhere from 800 to 1,200 pounds minimum and stood approximately 9 to 11 feet tall. The legs were thick and muscular and reminded me of hair-covered telephone poles. The hair appeared to be dark brown or maybe black, and I'm thinking no more than 4 inches long. It sounded like a bulldozer busting through the rhododendron, snapping branches as thick as my ankles. I remember thinking, there is no way I can outrun this thing, and if it wanted to, it could easily catch me. Being unarmed at the time didn't help with the fear factor, and at that point, I knew if I survived that day, I would never venture into the woods unarmed again. Like I said before, a flood of overwhelming thoughts in seconds. I knew to get back to camp, I had to go toward where this thing was just standing a second before. I remember thinking the sounds I heard earlier that I thought were deer must have been this creature following me. When I made the left uphill to get out of the rhododendron, I must have inadvertently flanked it, and my thoughts were that this thing was stalking me. That's when the almost 20 years of infantry training kicked in. You see, ambush situation, you always charge into the contact and never go any other direction. That's where the real trap is. It sounds crazy, but at that point, I just bolted in the direction of where I first saw it. To tell you the truth, I didn't know that I could even run that fast. I never looked back because I was in full panic mode. But I knew if I didn't slow down a little, I would eventually fall because it was rocky and downhill. I remember thinking if I fell, I would inevitably be injured severely and in bigger trouble. Somehow I gained my composure and slowed myself a little, but kept running for what felt like 3 miles till I came to the river. Funny, I never told my buddy that took me on the trip about it. I'm not even sure why I kept it to myself. And now that I think about it, I'm not sure if I got a look at his face at all. Or if I did, I must have somehow blocked it out of my memory because I was so scared. I think I may have gone into slight shock because I felt sick instantly. I know it saw me first. As soon as I started heading down the logging path towards it, I heard it move, and I looked up. At the same time, it turned to its right and took off like a bat out of hell. It busted through that rhododendron at amazing speed. What would have taken me 15 minutes to climb and weave through, it plowed through in seconds. I think the sound of the snapping branches made it even worse, knowing the power they would take to snap those thick branches. I have had nightmares about this big guy, and in them, its face looked more human than not. And the head was shaped kind of like a coconut still in the outer shell. In the dreams, it's never aggressive, but it still scares the hell out of me with its enormous size. I know one thing. If I would have had a camera, I would never have had the time to take a picture, nor would I have tried. It was too close, and it all happened so fast. I hope I never see another one, at least not that close. I've heard that they're supposed to smell bad, but I didn't smell anything out of the ordinary. The hair was not as long as I've heard in other reports either. Maybe by early summer the hair is shorter, I don't know. I often get a feeling that perhaps the area is part of a route, but I have no idea where that idea even came from. Weird, I know. I think that's why I couldn't find Indian hunting camps along that stream. Maybe the Indians knew and stayed away. I know if I had a topo map of that quadrangle, I could pinpoint the exact location due to the terrain features. But even to this day, every time I go hunting or into the woods, it is in the back of my mind. And I swear to God, this is 100% true to the best of my recollection, Jeff. Jeff. There you go, Jeff. Welcome to the club, my man. Welcome to the club, and I hope you're still with us safe and sound. Still goes hunting. And of course, in the back of your mind, I'll bet there isn't one human being on the face of the planet who's had this experience that doesn't think about it almost daily, right? I mean, I think about it while I'm here. I mean, I'm not stressed out or I don't have anxiety and I'm not worried, but the odd time, once I get real deep in the timber, the odd time I'll kind of have a little bit of a moment and think, well, all's cool. Nothing's going down. You know what I mean? But I'll have that thought. So it's always it's in the back of your mind. It's always on your mind, no matter what. Especially when you're alone in the woods, right? Anybody. Some people don't even like going walking by bushes anymore after having these experiences. It's kind of sad, frustrating. I wonder how many people still laugh. They think they laugh at this topic. There's nothing funny about it. I mean, let's face it, when somebody tells their story and somebody laughs, there's no comedy in these stories. There's no comedy at all. Like, there's no punchline. There's nothing actually funny being said. And for me, whenever I hear people that laugh at a testimony, their laughter is from being scared, and that's all there is to it. They're telling you they're scared. Where are we on the B-roll here? We're still walking down this pipeline right away towards their hunting stand in the back, but he said his parents never ever hunted the land. I guess somebody else must have had that stand in the back. I walked up to it. I was going to climb up it and have a little view of it, but there's a padlock in the bottom. You can't get in it. And then I'm pretty sure that fence line behind it was the very back of their property. And then I hang her right and I head her into the bush. Now, who's next? Who's next? Oh, we got a quick screenshot here. Text to me. Screenshot the comments, I guess. John One Shell Jr. Hope I didn't butcher the last name. Commented with this one. Listen to this. When I was building a logging road in the mountains, up off Picket Pin Road, back to Henningson's cabin, I saw a Sasquatch standing on a rock, out in the brush, waving its arms. I didn't think he was trying to fly. I thought he was trying to get my attention. At first, I thought it was a man, so I waved back, telling it to come over here by where I was running the bulldozer. Later that day, while fixing a flat tire, because they had blocked the road with manzanita brush, I blew a tire out. When changing that tire, they mimicked my bulldozer sound coming from 3 different directions, and they all three screamed at the same time at me and 2 other young gentlemen. I fixed that flat tire as fast as I could. I fixed the flat tires as fast as I could and got the hell out of there. They can mimic sounds they hear, whether it's a motor, a bird, an animal. They're great ventriloquists. Hangtown John. That's interesting, isn't it? Mimicked bulldozer sounds. 3 of them mimicking bulldozer sounds at the same time. Oh man, there is so much bizarre shit going on, isn't there? Crazy. Now, I've been trying to read ahead a little bit to see if I recognize some of these emails that aren't marked as read, so I don't do the double dipper here, but I guess if they've been read before and a long time ago, no big deal. But I found one that I have read before. It's short, and I'm going to read it again, only because this one, I don't know why, I never forgot this one. I never forgot this. Really had an impact on me listening to this. I mean, reading it. So I'm going to share it again here, all right? Listen to this. Hairy, big non-man is the title of this email to us. Hey, Steve, I'm an ex-combat vet. Served 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Afghanistan. I've been wounded twice. I was in almost 14 years. When I came home back in 2011, I was stationed at Fort Leavenworth one night in January 2012. I was on guard detail at a medium-sized perimeter station, concrete walls, 2 feet thick, and a solid steel blast door, a foot thick, just about a half a mile from the Missouri River. My comrade stepped out to smoke. This is around midnight, and in a snowstorm. He started banging on the door within a minute of being outside. I opened the door, and like, what the F, he just went out there. He's like, there's something out here, and it's not a man, and it's not any animal he's ever heard of. It's screaming at him, but he couldn't see it. So I stepped out with him, and we could hear something big, very big, just into the woods about 100 feet away. Then we heard a scream, roar, what the F ever. We both went back inside, locked the door, and within minutes, this thing started banging on the door with such force. It took me back to combat readiness in a flash. We looked at each other and the monitors in the station, and we could see only the top of its head. Long story short, we finally opened the door after it took off and found dents in the door. Solid metal, mind you. Yeah, it still freaks me out. And footprints in the snow 21 inches long that lead over the perimeter fence, which is 15 feet high with razor wire, and the prints were headed towards the river. I'm a very rational person. I don't take shit. Keep to myself, but had to share this. I never told anyone except my comrade who was on duty with me that night. It changed both of us to this day. Thanks for all you do, brother. Keep posting this stuff. We need to know what the F we're dealing with. You can use my first name, Michael. Thanks again for a release with no shame that night. Will always be with me, just like being wounded has. There you go, end of email. That is an insane experience. I mean, that's right out of a frickin' King Kong movie. You know what I mean? That scene. And I believe this, gentlemen. Appreciate that email. Beating on the metal doors. Oh, and leaving dents. Imagine looking at the monitor and seeing that thing standing there doing that pissed. That man, whatever you want to call it, that man beast. Who's next? I remember quite a while ago I asked everybody if anybody had ever seen the breath from their mouth, or seen sweat, or seen frost around their face from breathing in minus temperatures, like we get. I was curious about that. Well, listen to this. This is titled Steam Rose From It. Thanks for putting all this together. I had an experience years ago, and except for a very few people, 6 to be exact, I don't mention it much. When I was young, I didn't want to be made fun of or thought too odd. I wanted to fit in. But now that I'm much older than 58, I don't give a crap with what people think. And to hear your experiences brought it all back to me. And I remember it like it was last week. So here you go. I was 14 and living in Ogden, Utah. I was with a church group and we were playing games in a cabin close to the Snow Basin ski resort. It was early spring, so there's still some snow on the ground. We were in this cabin playing musical chairs. It was down to 2 players, Patterson and me. The music stopped, and Rick had won the game. As he went to sit, I pulled the chair out from under him, and I sat down, and he went to the floor. It was a prank and got a lot of laughs, but he got up and started chasing me. I was pretty fast back then, but I needed to run. I needed room to run, so outside I went, and with him on my tail. I took off running down this groomed trail that was about 15 feet wide and left him in the dirt. He went back in, and I stood there about 100 yards from the cabin. And it was dark, a bit chilly. The moon lit my way. And as I stood there catching my breath, I got that hair-raising feeling I was not alone. I turned around. And there, 20 yards away, was something standing in the trail that wasn't there before. And I was staring at it, trying to wrap my mind around what I was seeing. It was big and broad shoulders, although I couldn't see the arms or legs. So I was thinking maybe a tree or a bush in the trail. But then I noticed it was hairy. And with the moonlight, I could see steam was coming off the head and shoulders. It then exhaled, and I saw that steam coming out of the face area. That's when I knew it was alive, and it scared the shit out of me. I took off running back to the cabin and looked over my shoulder to see if it was following me, but it was gone. My thought was that it was going to cut me off before I made it back, but it didn't. When I ran back to the cabin, I must have had the look of death on my face. All the leaders came running over asking what was wrong. They said I was white as a ghost and looked terrified. And they were right. I never told them what I saw. I hadn't spoken of it to anyone for maybe 30 years. So how does something that big sneak up and leave without ever being heard? After spending many years in the hunting woods, I've seen this same thing with big elk and moose. And all I know is that he was too big to be a man, and it was not a bear. I don't care if I ever see one again. In fact, I'd rather not. I'm even getting goosebumps talking about this many years later. Well, anyway, that's my story, so share it if you want. Thanks again for getting this page started. And thanks for sending the email, my man. You know, that's a lot. It's almost, well, I don't know if it's a pattern-ish, but so many kids at camps have experiences with these beings, don't they, over the years? We've got a lot of emails from people that seen something in one of these camps, and it scared the living shit out of them. Rightfully so. What we got here, where are we in the B-roll? I'm looking up at the screen as it plays along. I bought one of these little tiny GoPros back during fishing season. This is one of the smaller chunks of open-ish timber they had on the property. It gets, but real thick here in a minute. Now I've got this is a long email. I don't know if I could probably do this. I started reading into it and I don't believe I shared this, and it's very interesting. And George, the author, is the man who was in the armed forces in South Africa, and they had those guys getting annihilated in the swamp in the night, their enemies. And they burst out of the swamp to find George and the other military guys for safety. It's an incredible story. And then, consequently, one of George's fellow military guys that was there for all his experiences, he was on the channel here, and I put him in contact with each other. How crazy is that? But anyways, listen to this. This is from George, all right? This is titled Round Table of Cardinal Knowledge. Knowledge is a familiarity, awareness, or understanding of someone or something, such as facts, skills, or objects. By most accounts, knowledge can be acquired in many different ways and from many sources, including but not limited to perception, reason, memory, testimony, scientific inquiry, education, and practice. This forms the basis of your round table of cardinal knowledge, where cardinal is meant as an adjective standing for the greatest importance / fundamental. This is about me. 2 pages, 1,691 words, 14 paragraphs. It was while watching one of Dave Plattis' videos that I became aware of you, and subsequently subscribed to your channel too. My name is George. Portuguese parents. Born, bred, fought, and qualified in South Africa, and now living abroad. Most people struggle with the pronunciation of my name, so to make things simple, my name is vocalized as George. I'm 51 years young, and I'm still writing out checks that my body cannot afford anymore. I have jumped out of planes and helicopters. I survived a landmine explosion, relatively unscathed, thanks to South African technology and a Casper. I've been attacked by several wild animals: lion, hippo, cheetah, snakes, and other creepy crawlies. I've even had a spider lay eggs in my chest. I've been shot at, wounded in war, Thankfully, was able to keep my leg, amazing surgeons. I witnessed many atrocities in several countries in Africa, dispatched some seriously bad individuals across the African continent. I lost some amazing friends during the war, survived several betrayals, including a divorce, where I lost everything I owned in the legal process. And I'm the proud father of two strapping boys that I brought up as a single parent, who are now also making their way in this world. My experience as a guide, a sniper, military, and as a doctor, everyday life, has provided me some pretty unique insights into what goes into being in this world. Coming from South Africa, born in what is then called the Transvaal, now Mpumalanga. Oh, yeah, I butchered that word. Name Mpumalanga. I've never pronounced a MPU in my life together. Okay, moving along. Living surrounded by the African brush, and we're speaking 3 different languages, was considered pretty normal for just about anyone born there. Being Portuguese, I speak 5 languages. Only after leaving RSA did I realize that most people only get to speak 2. My holidays were spent in the bush, forests, jungles, and savanna, where I would consume everything I could about those environments, their history, flora, and fauna, and in some cases create trails to bring paying customers to bracket, being your field, you must know this concept well, and bracket, admire and experience the African wilderness. I was a hiking guide, covering several trails throughout South Africa during my student years, from Southwest Africa down to the Cape, along the Garden Route, Otter Trail, Tsitsikamma Trails, along the Storms River, St. Lucia, and then back up to Pilgrim's Rest, etc. I would also go hunting with my father, originally from Mozambique, and where we would spend a lot of time with the various tribes and their elders, reloading our own practice ammunition, eating and sharing what we hunted and fished. I can honestly say that I had a really privileged childhood right up to my late teens, sharing a deep bond with my parents and with my father and his deep knowledge of the vast African continent. I can also say that I am from a time where some tribes people had never even seen a white man. I am still from a time that when you traveled on a hunt, it would take 10 to 15 days at a time. Once it went on as long as 4 weeks, usually by boat, down a river or by Land Rover / Willie's Jeep, literally at the times plowing through the brush, going through rivers to get from one point to another. Watching and listening to you brings back so many memories, even I dare say being therapeutic. Some tribes had never even considered to put on civilized / westernized clothing. I clearly remembered the first pair of naked breasts I saw. Entire villages where women walk around topless and partially naked, assisting with the making of traditional foods from all types of animals and insects. Different times. Community was everything then. Perhaps it is a generation thing, but in the South Africa I was brought up in, walking barefoot and wearing a t-shirt with shorts was pretty much an everyday occurrence, especially as kids. As young children, we had the notion that we were going to school to become something better, learning a skill and going into a field where we could make our country a better place to live in, regardless of what field we were thinking of. Work was viewed as an extension of our character, and the results produced the result of our determination and pride of a job well done, regardless of the profession you went into, where we could be proud to have a skill that would improve everything from one generation to the next. How naive was I? At home, I was given the notion that the family name represents everything you are. A firm handshake, looking a person in the eye to eye, a mark of who you were, and the integrity you carried as a man / person. Honestly, above everything else, if you committed to something, there was no going back. There is honor in standing for something pure and true. Just as important, though, owning your failures and learning from them. Women were revered for their intelligent and seductive femininity that only inspired a man to go further and above all his wildest expectations for fear of failing himself in her eyes and in his quest to gain her undivided attention and affection. My high school motto was something I took on as my own personal family motto. Quote, fearless and faithful, end quote. I live by this and I intend to die by these moral concepts. Family tradition has always been a big thing in our family. If you intend to share this, could you please leave out this part? Oh, hold on a minute. Okay, so it doesn't say where I could continue reading, and I think I make a pretty good guess at it, so here we go. On my 13th birthday, we go through a rite of passage where we get to go on a hunt and kill an animal, skin it, and process it, as this is our passage into becoming a man, providing for others. For this effort, we are awarded with a Swiss Army knife, bracket, Victorinox Swiss Champ XLT Swiss Army penknife, 10 layers / 50 functions, as a trophy. In South Africa, this was worth a small fortune at the time, 2 months' salaries. So I know it was no easy task for my father to accomplish this for both me and my younger brother. I have carried on this tradition with my 2 boys too, although with them it cost me a lot more for the hunt than the actual penknife, lol. In receiving the Swiss Army penknife, we are also given a quote by the then British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Watch your thoughts, or they will become your actions. Watch your actions, for they will become your habits. Watch your habits, for they will forge your character. Watch your character, for it will make your destiny. It is with these words that I have managed to keep on an even path. It is in this family concept that I have managed to survive the severe ups and downs of my life, and it is with my sons that I am still here today. What you refer to as pussies, I refer to as snowflakes. Don't get me wrong. I am the perfect gentleman, but I appreciate... Okay, I don't think I was supposed to read this part. Hold on a minute. I do not drink alcohol, never have, and I've never smoked anything. I was an Aikido instructor and still an avid student of Krav Maga, military. Although today I live the Aikido discipline more than I teach it. I can honestly say that since I left the RSA, I've not really been at peace. The great outdoors in southern Africa is pretty much like what I see in your world, albeit in an entirely different geographical and cultural setting. It does have a lot of similarities. The concept of hunting is pretty much the same. Hunt or be hunted. There must be a symbiotic relationship with you and that environment and the animals / all the life that occupies it. A deep respect for the capacity of taking a life so as to prolong another, and never more than what you need. The Hottentots are really a very good example of this. Practicing leave no trace. Whenever immersing yourself into that environment, learning from it and being an integral part of it. Africa is in my blood. I may have left Africa, but Africa still resides in me. Imagine my surprise when I arrived in Portugal and I was invited to go hunting. I struggled to ask what exactly it was that we were going to hunt. When I was faced with a reply of rabbits, I tried hard not to laugh, especially when they told me that they hunt rabbits with shotguns, 12 and 16 gauge. What the hell? And always with a team of several dogs? Imagine their reaction when I turned up to the hunt with a pocket full of ball bearings and a slingshot. It was classical. I tried that on 2 occasions and I gave it up as a bad joke, mainly because our, quote, hunters, end quote, would feel insulted that I would use their tactical blunders and the lay of their land, taking full advantage of what their dogs were doing, and then bag a half dozen rabbits within in as little as under 30 minutes. Those dogs were really good at driving the rabbits my way. That being done, I would get a little bray, barbecue, going in, cook up 2 or 3 of the catch for a group lunch. I learned this was taken as an insult. Go figure. I took this liberty to introduce myself to you, to open up to you a small part of where I'm coming from, to form a type of backdrop to the pages that follow. So enough about me. This is regarding you. After watching numerous episodes on your channel, I've picked up several themes that you seek answers to. I'd like to attempt answering some of these with what I know. I will start with a question you frequently call out. First, why do people who experience this event with someone no longer want to talk about the event with that person or any other person? Individuals with a specific phobia tend to avoid direct exposure to their feared stimulus and may avoid talking or even trying not to think about it. Human beings with a specific phobia recognize their fears as being irrational, especially adults. I can pinpoint at least 2 specific conditions that we can relate to these events and that you often cover in your round table of knowledge. These are anthropophobia and post-traumatic stress disorder. How do they differ and how can we understand them? What causes anthropophobia, not to be confused with scopophobia, the fear of being stared at? Anthropophobia, sometimes also spelt anthrophobia, is defined as the fear of people. Aspects of this phobia can be seen in a variety of other clinically recognized disorders. A person with social anxiety feels an uncontrollable fear that they will be judged or rejected by other people. They will often end up avoiding social situations altogether when they can. However, in theory, anthropophobia could include symptoms unrelated to social interaction. It is not always clear what causes a phobia. It can depend on the person, cultural beliefs, and past experiences. Sometimes there's no clear cause at all, but negative events or experiences with a certain thing or person can cause this. Because anthropophobia is not considered a clinical condition, there are no specific clinical symptoms. In my professional capacity, taking into consideration a major anxiety or a fear about a certain situation or thing, as in these cases, the event/experience nearly always causes an incredible level of anxiety or fear. The situation or thing is avoided when possible. For lack of knowledge to correctly label the event, the fearful reaction is disproportionately more than the actual danger the situation warrants, due to lack of certainty of the particulars surrounding the event/experience. Denial of what is not understood. It is happening, but the brain is not accepting the data being streamed via some of non-vocalized/vocalized event. The senses are receiving the data, but the brain is not filling the information appropriately. Typically, this anxiety will exist as if it happened yesterday for at least 6 months and even longer. The anxiety causes noteworthy distress or hinders daily functioning in some way. Hence, the reason for not wanting to talk about the event in question. Typically, these symptoms are not caused by another disorder or medical condition. Not to mention that there will also be the reaction by the listener, which is unpredictable at best. If they choose to talk about their experience to someone, this in turn increases the fear factor and further suppresses the need to talk about the event. And this is where I think your channel has become a vital portal for people who have experienced these events to share, and more importantly, hear that they are not alone. We are not mad. We are not abnormal or imagining things. What causes post-traumatic stress disorder? PTSD is about being a survivor to an event/experience. Many survivors of sexual and non-sexual assault, combat, accident, natural disaster, or other traumatic events suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder and continue to feel extreme anxiety and helplessness long after the trauma. Symptoms of PTSD include intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, engrams, nightmares, extreme stress when reminded of the trauma, sleep disturbances, difficulty concentrating, hyperalertness, and loss of interest in usual activities. This in turn is the cause to shut down any form of conversation or experience that will bring back the memory of the event. Sometimes just having shared this with a specific person is reason enough to avoid the specific person so as to not bring back that feeling of utter despair and terror associated with the event/experience. This is regarding you, continued. Why do people feel the need to cancel others? When a person is thrust out of a social or professional circle, be it online, on social media, or in person, those who are subject to this ostracism are said to have been cancelled. Cancel culture, or call-out culture, is a modern form of ostracism. Considering that everyone nowadays has a mobile phone and is constantly attached to multiple feeds throughout the day, it is not surprising that there is a fear of being taken out of the social link. Some students are afraid to express unpopular ideas for fear of being called out on social media and may avoid asking questions as a result. Call-out culture's prevalence can make marginalized groups feel even more hesitant to speak out for what they feel is right. Essentially, being ostracized refers to the act of ignoring and excluding individuals, a way to kill the subject before it sparks off some interest in the topic/theme they are vocalizing or presenting to others. The notion of cancel culture is a variant on the term call-out culture and constitutes a form of boycotting involving an individual, usually a celebrity, who is deemed to have acted or spoken in a questionable or controversial manner. For those on the receiving end of cancel culture, the consequences can lead to loss of reputation and income, from which it can be hard to recover. So this is a way to punish, cancel, someone because they do not align with your beliefs. On another level, the person canceling another could also be jealous. Jealousy generally refers to the thoughts or feelings of insecurity, fear, concern over a relative lack of possessions/safety/attention. At an emotional level, jealousy covers anger, resentment, inadequacy, helplessness, or disgust. Regardless of where it's coming from, it serves as a reference to the inadequacy the jealous person has of themselves. Why do people see things in slow motion during a crisis situation? Oh, these are questions I've thrown down. So the next question is, why do people see things in slow motion during a crisis situation? I don't know about how many of you guys, but I've had that happen a lot in my lifetime. This phenomenon is known as akinetopsia. Akinetopsia. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. Akinetopsia. The loss of motion perception. People see the objects but cannot perceive their movement for some time. The so-called Zeitraffer phenomenon is similar to akinetopsia and manifests itself as an altered, usually slowed down, perception of the velocity of the moving objects. This at times can also be seen as tachypsychia. 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 A neurological condition that alters the perception of time, usually induced by physical exertion, drug use, or a traumatic event. The mind is focused and we feel alert. The bodily situation increases the chance of survival when we have to defend ourselves or have to quickly run away from danger. Because the body and mind are in a mode of extreme speed, it seems like what is happening outside in the world then slows down. Epinephrine, adrenaline rush is being pumped into our muscles to increase the body's capacity to react to the immediate danger. The amygdala, amygdala, an almond-shaped mass of gray matter inside each cerebral hemisphere of the brain involved with the experiencing of emotions, is commonly thought to form the core of a neural system for processing fearful and threatening stimuli, including detection of threat and activation of appropriate fear-related behaviors in response to threatening or dangerous stimuli. Because of its role in processing emotional information, the amygdala is also involved in memory consolidations, the process of transferring new learning into long-term memory. Both the amygdala and the hippocampus contain many receptors for neurotransmitters. The central nucleus of the amygdala is the most strongly modulated by dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and serotonin, all directly linked to emotional response. Did you know you are what is not so commonly known as a nemophilist? 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 Question mark? A person with a love or fondness for forests, woods, and woodland scenery, or someone who often visits them. No shit. Crazy. What causes fear where no obvious cause for feeling fear while out and about? All right. And here comes the explanation for this. There are proprioceptors which regulate proprioception. Proprioception refers to how your brain understands where your body is in space. These include the senses of position and movement of our limbs and trunk, the sense of effort, the sense of force, and the sense of heaviness. Proprioceptors are specialized sensory receptors that are located within joints, muscles, and tendons. As these receptors are sensitive to both tension and pressure, they play a role in relaying information concerning muscle dynamics to the conscious and subconscious parts of the central nervous system. The proprioceptors involve both exteroceptors, which sense stimuli originating from outside of the body, including pain, touch, vibration, temperature, and sound, and mechanoreceptors, which respond to external stimuli such as touch, pressure, and vibration. Together they deliver millions of signals to the brain which direct not only our movements but many of our reflexes. For this part, the inner ear contains structures including the non-auditory labyrinth and vestibular organ that are sensitive to acceleration, rotation, and orientation in a gravitational field. Muscle spindles, also known as stretch receptors, are sensitive to changes in muscle length. These allow you to know when and how far to stretch your legs while walking, or your arms when reaching. Golgi tendon organs found in the tendons are sensitive to changes in muscle tension. They sense how much tension a muscle is exerting and what is needed to affect a movement with the appropriate amount of energy. Pacinian corpuscles are situated in the skin and are responsible for detecting changes in pressure, which the body reads as texture, temperature, and other sensations. Through our hearing, the body will react. Our hearing can detect sound waves up to 20 hertz distinctly. The human body resonates/vibrates at 10 hertz. In the military, we were taught about the effects of infrasound, which include those on the inner ear: vertigo, imbalance, intolerable sensations, incapacitation, disorientation, nausea, vomiting, and bowel spasm. Resonances in inner organs such as the heart, etc. As a sniper, you never keep your eye directly on the target for more than a second at a time when dealing with distances shorter than 900 meters. where 19 Hz infrasound is the fearing frequency, causing discomfort, dizziness, blurred vision, hyperventilation, and fear, possibly leading to a panic attack in some people, being just below the clear audible range. 7 Hz infrasound is dangerous to human beings, used by the military as part of security for highly secretive locations, especially when located in unmanned locations such as in caves/bunkers, as part of an array of intricate security countermeasures. It reminds me of the high security systems we had in our top secret installations. There, the military will use infrasound systems that are aimed directly towards an area approaching the installation. Our organs vibrate just above this range. To be subjected to this lower resonance will, over a period of time, shut down your body and causing death. Symptoms start with nausea, headache, dizziness, leading to paralysis and eventually death. In the cases you and Dave have made mention, there are the following common points, be it from a consciousness/subconscious point of view. These relate to our proprioception, sixth sense, silence that seems to blanket an area, feeling of fear, dread, and danger to being in that area, usually experienced along areas with running water, mechanical energy, usually located near high quantities of granite, high electromagnetic energy, frequent in southern weather changes. It's a combination of electromagnetic/atmospheric pressure changes. Compass bearing anomaly, pointing in a different direction to north, usually in the direction of the anomaly itself. I have experienced this on numerous occasions while in the military. Used it as a spotter for electromagnetic anomalies, pointing towards something instead of somewhere. I have experienced this with the predator camo. That's a quote, predator camo. The smell of rotten sewage with a type of wet hydrogen sulfide, rotting chicken flesh smell that you can taste. Orbs of light that are either solid or translucent, sometimes stationary or moving very fast and slow. Then boom, it ends. That's it. George, I'm sure you're still here. That can't be the end of that email. That's one hell of an interesting email. That's a lot of answers to a lot of questions I've had for sure, and a lot of people here as well. Very, very interesting. That infrasound, that the hertz, the vibration, and how. So what you're saying is humans can intentionally inflict death on other humans just by using sound, vibration. Isn't that terrifying? And doesn't all those explanations fit a lot of patterns that a lot of people here are experiencing in the woods, right? Very, very, very interesting. And there we go. Holy, I got to get my button gear, you guys. Holy shit, we almost made it right through this B-roll too. It's going to end in a few seconds, so I better stop babbling. Share my story at howtohunt.com, and I will get in my inbox and try to find this original email and find the rest of it. George is a very, very intelligent man. I'm super, super, super thankful that George found us here and has contributed quite a few times. Hope it's still recording. The screen went blank, but it's still recording. All right, moving along. I got to go in the woods tomorrow. One more time, and get home. But anyways, Sarah still has her sale on her store. If you're interested and you want to be heard, you got some information to share with the world, some truth, email me at sharemystory@howtohunt.com, all right? And you will get that shared word for word. And hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. I appreciate everyone big time and hope everybody's doing great. Back later.